All right, welcome back. My name is Joe. This is Sagar with the Deduction Desk. And today we're going to be discussing something that the IRS releases every year. They've been doing it for what, past 20 years?
I think like 20 years, yeah.
And what this list is derived of is different scams to be looking out for and top line items for what they would be potentially auditing throughout what they see throughout the year. You know, certain things that we're going to be going through, but main things that we're looking at are potential cybersecurity threats, things that everybody should be taking a consideration and taking a look at, because those are things that you might be running into. Bogus credits, certain fuel credits, self-employment tax credits, things of that nature. And I think a big factor on this IRS scam list for this year is the social media misinformation, which is ironic because we're giving out information on social media. But it is important for you to understand that the people that you're listening to need to be always checked, and you need to make sure that you're getting the right information every time.
Yeah.
Especially before you implement something from a tax perspective.
This list is about scams, right?
Right.
It's either you getting scammed or the IRS getting scammed.
Right.
Right. And that's the point of this list. And I think for years people have been saying the biggest scammers are these jokers that are on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, well, they say whatever they want. It's more for views, not more for credibility or they're correct.
And they have no license. They have nothing that holds them responsible. And at the end of the day, if you try to sue them, it's like, hey, it was entertainment purposes only.
Right.
Why'd you listen to me? Why didn't you listen to your professional? So
yeah. Well, that makes our job harder.
Makes our job harder, but that's also why we do this, where we want to, try to give some good advice.
Yeah. So let's start with the first line item.
Yeah.
Email phishing and SMS. I guess they're calling it smishing scams.
Yeah. I think also the name Dirty Dozen is just like unnecessarily gratuitous.
Right.
It's just like, hey, 12 scams all right. So you probably have gotten these like a fake phone call.
Without a doubt. I'm getting them now. I get a message that says, "What are you up to?" From like a 718 number.
Yeah.
I don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
Get me in trouble with my wife.
Yeah. For real.
I'm like, I've never seen this person.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's a scam, huh, Joe?
Yeah, exactly.
You get the fake tax refund notices. You get emails saying, hey, click here, and it goes to a spoofed website that's not really an IRS website. You enter your information and people steal your data. Like back in the day before PIN authorizations and IP pins and all these other things you can put in to kind of protect your tax filing, a big scam that used to happen was somebody would get a hold of your social security number, they'd file a bogus tax return, claim a bunch of tax credits, and get, as stupid as the IRS used to be, they used to give you a prepaid debit card as your tax refund,
right?
Which is like, why are you doing this to begin with? But people used to do that, get the prepaid debit card, and it would be good eating every March for the scammers. So that is something they definitely want you to keep aware of. The IRS does not email you, they do not text you, and they definitely don't DM you, even though they had to specifically point this out that if you get a DM from the IRS, do not click on the link. So if I need to tell you that, you might already be a lost cause.
I mean, listen, and I think the technology side of things from different generations, I mean, Pete Alonso's been traded to the Yankees 3 times, according to my dad, everything that he's found on Instagram. And some things that are obvious to us aren't obvious to others. So, it's definitely going to a phish website where you think it looks like the IRS and you're plugging in your information. It's definitely important to keep an eye on this.
And there's a couple more like next in the list. They really did focus on the scamming stuff. I didn't see some of the other things we've seen in the past, like the conservation easements, things that were really big targets. They're focusing more, it looks like, on getting bad advice centered around certain tax deductions you can take. So that's one, right? The email phishing scam. Number 2, bad social media advice is the number 2 thing on the IRS Dirty Dozen list. And this is, probably leading you towards there's probably people they've seen online that are giving bad advice. And maybe they're saying, hey, anybody who's working with these people might be a target. But regardless, that is number 2.
I mean, think about the amount of people that use TurboTax that, do their own tax accounting.
Yeah.
And they saw some guy online that says, oh, buy an Airbnb and you can write the whole thing off. And then they just plug it into the system and do it. You're top of the list going to get audited if you think that you just followed some random guy on Instagram.
And the 3 big ones they talk about on there, there's the fuel tax credit that you may or may not be eligible for. There were 2 big Instagram influencers on on taxes that have talked about it recently. We were going back and forth on whether or not we're going to name them, but maybe if you send us a message, we'll tell you who they were. They have huge followings, and they were both talking about the fuel tax credits. These things exist, but not everyone's eligible for them, and not everyone can take the benefits. And sometimes you get misled into doing this. So fuel tax credit number one. Number two, household employee wages. This is hiring your children improperly, not having the right backup and the right documentation. We had a video on this where we talked about the right way to do this. Extremely important to watch that because that's something that they're looking for, improperly hiring your own children. Yep. And then number three is using this ERC credit for self-employed individuals in the form of the sick and family leave. If you had a small business during 2020 and 2021, in many cases you are eligible to take these tax credits if you were paying self-employment taxes on your business as a Schedule C business or a pass-through general partnership. That's something that people have been preyed upon, and they have these scammers out here who are telling you, hey, I can get you 20 grand, 30 grand. They're improperly applying for these credits, getting you the money, taking a percentage of what you get, and then when you get the notice from the IRS saying you never should have gotten that $20,000, they're gone in the wind. So The last one, number three, right? This is also in that same scamming area. It's people asking you to set up an online account for the IRS, right? The IRS has done a pretty decent job of setting up the online portals, which are pretty helpful, and they have a lot of your information on there. And I think what people might be getting targeted by is they're kind of difficult to set up. They require you to take a selfie or do a voice memo, uploading pictures of various documents to prove your identity. I can see older people getting tripped up with it. In fact, some of our older clients get tripped up with it. We usually tell them, come into the office, bring your information. We'll set it up with you on your phone. Don't ever give that type of information out to people. We don't want that info as professionals. You should keep that, because if you give it to us, that's another liability for us to safeguard. So anybody who's willingly saying, give me your IRS account information, just be careful.
Yeah, steer clear. Number four, fake charities, right? So there's a lot of individuals, companies, scammers that are out there that there's a natural disaster that comes up. There's something immediate that happens that all of a sudden there's a GoFundMe or there's a charity that you should be, putting money in to try and help. And they send you out these links and you click on them and all of a sudden you're giving money to somebody else that has no intention of any charitable use for it.
That's one part of it. The other part of it is literally, if I wanted to go make a New Jersey charity, I could file a piece of paperwork and get it in a day. That doesn't mean it's a real charity or that it's 501c3 approved. It just means that I have applied for this charitable status. I now have to do a giant form to the IRS and get approved. But if my intentions were dubious, I would set up that account, tell people I have this charity I've made. You typically have 2 years to go get that 501c3 status. So I could tell Joe, hey Joe, here's my charity. It's gonna go help these, starving orphans.
Right.
And Joe gives me money. He thinks he can take the deduction on his personal tax return for paying for this good cause. And whether or not I donate the money or not, Joe is ineligible to take the deduction.
Right.
So that's one that you kind of have to do your homework on who you're giving money to.
Well, the IRS has a tax exempt organization search tool that you can use. So before donating, it's always worth it to just Google on the IRS's website.
That's right.
And look for some of those organizations to make sure that the one you're putting in is the correct one.
Yeah. And we set these things up. We set these charitable funds up. It is not an easy thing to do. It takes a long time and it's a big process. And there's plenty of people out there who maybe had good intentions and they tried to set up a charity properly and then they just were overwhelmed by the paperwork to get the actual approvals. And unfortunately for the people who are donating to these folks, it's still not tax deductible. And you may be doing things there where you're, committing tax fraud by taking credit for these charitable contributions. And then kind of touching back on some of the things we talked about earlier as part of these social media advice, they also highlighted again as part of the dirty dozen. I don't know if the IRS is being lazy and doing it twice and kind of like doubling the work, but the fuel tax credits, family leave credits, and the self-employment tax credits are 5, 6, and 7. Those are all things we talked about earlier.
I think those are ones that most social media people are speaking on.
Yeah.
But each one of those individually, for your purpose of filing the taxes in that specific area, are most eligible for audits because you filed those in most cases are incorrect if you got it from social media.
Number 8 is is just like straight up tax fraud. We're like,
Right.
I don't know what, like why you'd have to bring this out, but
So it's
there's
probably always on the list.
yeah, it's creating fake employees for your home, like nannies and gardeners, and saying you're paying these people. And maybe you are paying them, maybe you're paying them under the table, or maybe you're hiring some company, but people will make a form called Schedule H on their personal tax return, claim these people exist, or that they paid somebody this much money, put in false social security numbers, whatever else, or maybe a real social security number, they didn't actually pay the person that much money. And then on your personal tax return, when you hire these household employees, you get a tax credit for that, and then they take these tax credits. So pointing it out, hey, if you're doing this, you should know this is wrong just because it sounds completely wrong, but this is something that they are cracking down on, which also leads me to believe that if there's people that are doing this fraudulently, people that are doing this legitimately, you're probably also a target for these types of audits.
Number 9 is interesting, right? Overstating withholding,
Yeah.
which I mean, kind of seems like you take a lot more withholding than you need and you're getting a much bigger refund than you should. And I think in some examples, maybe people who are doing their tax returns on their own and don't really get it, maybe may potentially kind of dive into this. How does someone, I guess maybe either overstate their income or maybe claim too many individuals and they don't have that many?
Yeah, I think it's like when you have your W-2 and there's this box 2, which is your federal withholding. Yeah. People just put a giant number in there.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah, exactly. Just try to get a huge tax refund, right? So that's your actual federal withholding. So say you made 100 grand, box 2, they withheld 15,000 of state taxes. Somebody may put like 25,000 in there.
Right.
And you know, the IRS isn't the best, most well-oiled machine. So there are times where you may slip through the cracks and get that money. And apparently it's big enough of an issue where the IRS is saying this gets flagged, automatic full audits.
Made the dirty dozen.
Yeah, or even, I think that also means that if you made a simple mistake and put the wrong withholding amount, they may take a deeper look at what you're doing. So be careful, I guess. This one, number 10, we get all the time from like new clients. Somebody will come over and they'll typically call you on like 2 days before the tax deadline. And they're like, hey, I have 4 years of taxes I need to file. And then shortly after, they'll also sometimes mention that they have a big tax bill due with the IRS right now. And they want to know if they can do an offer in compromise. And they'll say, hey, I have somebody who told me that they could do it for me for this much of a flat fee and that they'll get rid of my tax bill.
You pay it and it's not actually gone.
And it's not gone, right? Or you pay somebody and they're like, oh, we tried, sorry. They must have not liked your case. You could check it for free, irs.gov, and they'll tell you if you're eligible. And if you're eligible, go based on that. You also shouldn't be prepaying for services like that. There's plenty of offer and compromise places that will do a percentage of what they actually get you. And that's probably a better route if you do owe a bunch of money to the government. But certainly go and check on irs.gov for free and see if you're even eligible for this offer and compromise.
Well, number 11, ghost tax return preparers. I'm sure this happens actually more than people think it does, right?
Well, we've seen it.
Right, return preparers who prepare tax returns for free but refuse to sign the actual return.
Yeah, it's signed by TurboTax.
Right, that's a very big red flag in a lot of those instances.
Yep.
Individuals that want to avoid the responsibility of the return. The people that ask for cash, they promise unusual large refunds for you. They want a refund, sent to their own bank account. I would assume that's obvious, right? You've talked to if my accountant was like, your return's gonna go to my bank account and then I'm gonna give it back to you.
And then I'll cut you a check.
Yeah, that's obviously illegal and shouldn't happen.
I had a girl that I think it wasn't like a client. We went on a date and she was saying how her friend basically was offered, this is one of my friend's girlfriends. Okay. He was telling me that her friend basically went to an accountant and he had when you go to the doctor and they weigh you and they slide that thing. Yeah. And he's like, slide it to where you want, how aggressive you want to be. So he's like, if you slide it all the way to the max.
For a tax return?
For a tax return. I'm going to be super aggressive and get you the biggest return possible. And if you want to be very conservative, keep it on this side.
He's like, and the law is right here.
Well,
but everywhere else is.
So she goes and uses this guy and he comes back and she's like, all right.
Obviously, I want the highest
max. And he's like going to get her like $25,000 and she made probably like $60,000 or $70,000 a year. Yeah. And like, I'm going to get you $25,000 back. And she's like, okay, like no questions asked, just signs it. And then TurboTax prepared, self-prepared, zero responsibility for that guy. Probably wasn't even licensed, to be completely honest, because that's like one of the cardinal sins of
and
accounting.
I don't think most people even understand that, right? If you're like, for instance, you're an accountant, you're a CPA, you file people's tax returns, you're signing the tax returns at the bottom, saying I
it has my
this,
name, my
it's my responsibility for it, right?
My firm's
so
name.
For a lot of organizations, most people don't realize you should look at your tax return. If it says self-filed and you're paying someone to file it,
something's wrong.
Not good.
Yeah, you're dealing with somebody who's
that needs to be a number one question
or something.
And we've run into that before.
Oh, yeah.
We've run into clients that have come to us, showed us our tax return, and we said, "Are you filing this yourself?" And they said, "No, I've had an accountant for 10 years."
Yeah.
Well, more than likely is not an accountant.
Yeah, you look them up on the state licensing board and they don't exist. And
and the IRS says, look, there's a PTIN, a prepared tax identification number that every CPA, qualified CPA gets, and you should be asking for those numbers if you're going to be setting up tax returns through someone else.
And the last one is more for the accountants themselves, right? Where now clients kind of do target CPAs. Our new clients may target you, sending you a Dropbox link and saying, click on this for all my details or whatever. We see those. We recently had a crazy one where a client sent us an email saying to run 1099s for a bunch of different employees of theirs or contractors of theirs. And they sent the W-9, they sent the amounts, they sent the bank details, and we're getting ready to pay it. And then obviously just to do a double check, we call them and just confirm the information. And they're like, what are you talking about? I did not send any email to you. And then they go in and check and they see actually somebody had hacked their email and sent out a bunch of requests to their accountant, their lawyers, anybody else that they could think of to go and see if they can draw money.
Crazy.
So it's crazy. It's crazy out there. And the IRS confirms it. The IRS is saying the biggest things that they're looking for are certain scams. All right. So if you want to get from this, what are the main red flags? It's the fuel tax credit. It's the hiring of your children improperly. It's fake household employees or social security numbers that don't match up on household employees that you have. The self-employment tax credit, which is another way to do the ERC. And just, I think, and it's not stated, but generally maybe associating yourself with firms that have a reputational risk.
Right.
Well, good luck out there, everybody.
Yeah, good luck. Hopefully this information was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.